Hey, you guys, it is May in Utah and it is hot in the greenhouse. This morning when I came out first thing at 6:30, it was cold. And so I turned the heaters off, but I left the door shut. And when I got here about 1:30 after work, it is hot. So I've got the doors open and the fan running. I don't know if you can hear that in the background or not. I'm trying to cool it off here. This week has been a little bit crazy. Friday morning, I got up first thing and I sprayed all the weeds because it was supposed to get to be 70 degrees. So I thought, oh, we're going to be good. Nope, it didn't get to be 70. And nope, all that, I think it was 2.5 hours I spent out here spraying weeds. It did not kill one weed. Well, maybe one alfalfa plant, and that's it. And then Saturday, I thought, okay, it's supposed to be nice. And it was nice when we got up in the morning and we came out and we planted a couple of apple trees, a Granny Smith and a McIntosh and an American plum tree. And we dug holes for 2 more trees and because they're coming from the nursery. And we dug all the areas that were supposed to be places for my elderberries to be planted. And I probably will plant those elderberries, but not right now. It's too cold. And then we went to my sister's and we planted 3 lilacs and we planted 3 plum trees. And then we came back to the house and we drove to Salt Lake and went to Costco. I know I had lots to do in the greenhouse. I had lots to do in the yard, but I was out of Diet Coke and I definitely needed more Diet Coke. So that's what we did. Sunday I got up and we went to church. And when we got home from church, my mom was here and my sister, and I gave her 12 zucchini plants. And they went home and they planted those 12 zucchini plants and they put, I think my sister said that they were sweet tea bottles that she'd been saving. They cut the bottoms off of those and put them over the top like itty bitty greenhouses, took the cap off so that they could breathe. And my mom's been going out there and watering them. They're doing just fine because those little greenhouses keep them warm in the night and during the day. But this weekend, it is supposed to get hot. And when it gets hot, we'll have to take those little greenhouses, those individual greenhouses off each one of those zucchini plants. But I was going to plant zucchini in my yard for you. Yeah, didn't get done. But I'm wondering, are you thinking, why is she even considering planting zucchini? Because for the last 2 years, all I've heard her say is, don't plant your tenders before your last frost date, which in my area has always been the Memorial Day weekend. But my zucchini are big, and I planted them too early. I planted them the same time I planted everything else, and they need to get in the ground. So when it gets warmer on Saturday, no, not this Saturday. I guess it'll have to be Friday, because this Saturday we're going to be doing some things for my mom in her yard, and I'm really looking forward to that. So I guess Friday I'm going to plant some zucchini out in the raised beds out in the garden. And then the zucchini will be way faster than if I planted them out there at the end of May. But that's not all I've got to plant out there. And I know this is so alien to me, so alien. I don't plant anything in the garden until after Memorial Day weekend. But it's got to happen because the plants are outgrowing my greenhouse. Do you remember those little tiny plants that came from Salina Gardens out of California? Yep. They're probably about a foot tall now, maybe a little bit more, and they need to go out into the garden. And so I guess Friday I'll do those also. But I'm wondering, is she really going to do that? Well, yeah, I'm really going to do that. And yes, is it up against everything I've said for 2 years? Yeah, it is. But I also got some fiberglass poles. They're just teeny poles. And I'm going to put those across the beds. And if it looks like it's going to get below freezing one night between now and Memorial Day weekend, then I'll be able to go out, put some plastic over those hoops, and the plant should be fine overnight. I hope. But I'll show you all those plantings when I do them. But what else is going on in the greenhouse? Well, I have, like I said, lilacs to plant. I have some more American plum trees to plant. I have got 20 chokecherry plants to plant. Where are you going to put them, you're asking? Well, I guess I'll just show you. All right, so this is the orchard. And I have all kinds of different trees planted out there, and I'll kind of talk about what they are. But right here, along this line, you can see this right here, that line going up there. I think there's 4 Nanking cherry bushes there, and they should be able to produce this year. They didn't last year, but if you'll look at all those berries. Yep, they didn't get froze. And along here, as we continue to go, this kind of takes a curve. And yeah, I'm sure you're going to look at that and say, well, Chris, you got a lot of weeds. You're right, I got a lot of weeds. But underneath those weeds, if you can see here, is a water line. And at different times, I have planted plants along that line, and they have done okay, and then they've had a bad time. Like I had some, I can't remember what they were, but anyway, and they died. And I think it might have been because the water system kind of got screwed up. But I've got places right here, I think, for 5 or 6 of those gooseberries. There's a hole that Bree dug for me so that we can put another tree in there. But there's another place here, and then this goes all the way around until it goes over there by that green pole. And I'm going to put chokecherries in there. Oh boy. And then as I go up here, kind of through the orchard again, you'll see there's a little American plum that we put in the ground. And I've got a lot of apple trees. That one right there, you can see that's a brand new apple tree. There's one over there on the other, over by the wheelbarrow, that's an apple tree. Here's an apple tree. It's kind of slow, but this mess, and I agree, it's a mess, is the berry patch. And you can see that there's been some watering going on here. And you can see over there that there's a few bushes that are alive. But right here on this line, that was raspberries. Well, they didn't live. Well, I can't say quite they didn't all live, because some of them did. See, I've got a few raspberries right there that are kind of coming up. I guess all 4 of those have lived, but these over here didn't. And a couple of those up there are alive, and I think they might be some chokecherries, I don't know, but there's some that are dead, like those over there and these here. So this is where the chokecherries are going to go. Now I'm sure that as you look at this, it's not like those beautiful green lush gardens that some of you have back east, or maybe in England, or even in a suburb, maybe Denver or Salt Lake. But I live in a rural Utah, and I live in the high desert. And I have to fight the weeds, and I have to fight the cedar trees, and I have to fight the, whatever this other stuff's called, pinyon pine trees. So it's different, but even though I have to struggle sometimes to get some of this stuff to grow, it's not all bad, and it's not all a bad news story, because if you'll look at how tall that apple tree is. Yep, and look how tall this apple tree is. See, and I'm 6'2". So these trees are 9 foot, 10 foot tall. And there's some others that are like that. There's some cherry trees, and some plum trees, and some trees that are just trying to start, and some trees that are doing really well. I think it's kind of like my ancestors. And if you'll hold on just a minute, I'll tell you about my ancestors that came as pioneers and settled this part of the country. I decided to come in the canning shed, and that way I didn't have to fight the wind, and I didn't have to keep my sunglasses on because the sun was so bright, and it's not as hot as that greenhouse. So I decided this was a good place to talk about my ancestors. The ancestors on both sides of my family, both my mother's and my father's, came as homesteaders to the Uinta Basin in Utah. And when they got here, there were no roads and there were no fences and there were no homes. Well, I'm sure there were a home here or there, but not as many homes as there are now. And they had to file on their homestead, and then they had to perfect it. And they had to put in fences that would keep their livestock from running away. They had to put up fences to keep other people's livestock and the wildlife out of their gardens. They had to build homes so that they'd have a place to stay. But every one of my grandparents, whether it's my great-grandparents' homes that are down here along the river, or my great-grandparents' home that is up in the upper country, there are fruit trees. And I know that they had to bring those fruit trees. They couldn't just run down to the nursery because there was no nursery. And they had to bring them as transplants. And they had to baby them all the way here, which might take 3 or 4 or 5 days in a wagon or in a buckboard or on a horse. And then they had to baby them once they got here so that they wouldn't die. Well, I can do that same thing. I can water them, and I can fertilize them, and I can baby them so that they won't die. It's not as difficult for me. I don't have to carry water from the river. I don't have to carry water from the ditch. I just have to turn on the water out of my hose. And how grateful I am for that, because I'm not quite sure that I am as tough as they were. But my grandmother, my great-grandmother down here by the river had beautiful apple trees. They're still there, beautiful apple trees. My grandma's house has beautiful apple trees. My grandma's house up in the upper country and my great-grandmother's house had apple trees. I don't know that they are still there, but they did have apple trees, and they had fruit trees. And they made apricot preserves to put on their homemade bread. And they made applesauce out of those yellow transparent apples. And they did all those things to give their families variety in their menus and for the things that they're going to eat. So they have something that was a little sweet on their at different times in their meals. We all like that, don't we? We like to put a little jam on our toast, or we like to have a little applesauce with our pork chops, or we like to do any of those kind of things. And I'm just grateful that I had grandparents that homesteaded this area. I love this area. I think I've told you that a time or two. And I'm so grateful for the time and the sacrifice that they made to come here. I'm grateful for the fact that I had great-grandparents that loved to garden, especially great-grandmothers, because the great-grandfathers were out doing other things like farming and ranching and timber, logging. I had a great-grandfather that worked in the mines over in Price during the winter and then would come home in the summer. They did the hard things. And we do the hard things too. They're just different hard things. But my great-grandmothers were wonderful gardeners, and my grandmas were wonderful gardeners. And my mom and my dad loved to garden. And I'm so grateful that I have inherited that. And I'm grateful I don't have a black thumb, that I'm able to take the seeds and plant them and baby them and water them and feed them and put them in my garden, or put those berries out in my orchard or in my berry patch and baby them and water them and fertilize them. And I'm so grateful it's easier now than it was back then, because I'm not sure I would have done it. I'm grateful to live here. I'm grateful for, even though I've got a bunch of weeds out in that orchard, I know that those trees are going to grow. And I'm grateful that it is summer, or almost summer. If you guys are liking your videos, give them a thumbs up. If you don't like them, drop me a message and let me know how come you don't. I love to garden, and I hope that I can instill that in you as well. I hope that my grandsons are planting plants in their new yards. I hope that my son has got his raised bed up and has planted squash in it, which I don't know he hasn't yet, because he's going to come get some squash this weekend at my house and take them home and plant them. I thought that this weekend I would really get after it and I would get all those plants out of the greenhouse, and maybe I will on Friday. But on Saturday, I have parts of my family that are coming, and we are going to do some projects for my mom and make her happy for Mother's Day. And I hope you all enjoy your Mother's Day. If you're a mother, if you're a father, I hope you make your mother happy on Mother's Day. I hope you let her know how much you appreciate her. And I hope you're enjoying whatever kind of gardening you're doing. If you're watering your house plants, if you're growing seeds, if you're still looking at catalogs, if you're making lists for the nursery, whatever it is you're going to do, I hope you're enjoying it. And we will talk again.